back to the studio, and with that, we say goodbye to the Facebook Alliance. Unfortunately, they will not be competing anymore in this tournament, mainly due to a bit of an over-eager Mollis and the Thorax that kind of charged in ahead of their team. Guys, would you say that was a defining moment in that fight?
I mean, I think it's still very possible that even without those mistakes, German ski lesson would have won. They are a very strong team, and they were in a very good position.
Yeah.
But those mistakes were definitely the thing that gave the momentum to the German ski lesson team.
Yeah. So we have the stats here on screen.
I do actually want to give a little kind of credit to the Facebook Alliance. I mean, I appreciate their creativity in the first 2 weeks, but I felt this was the strongest setup they brought of the three. They were the team that brought Taluses the first week. And then last week they won with an Abaddon setup, which was cool, but kind of unusual. I feel like this was their most kind of standard, competitive, like meta-appropriate setup they brought. So that's, I feel like they deserve a bit of credit for that. Obviously some piloting errors and coming up against a really good team cost them this match, but I don't know. Shout out for
there's no doubt about it. They're about as good as a German ski lesson, are a very experienced team. They flew that match in an experienced way, kind of waiting to capitalize on the mistakes made by Facebook Alliance, only losing a single Punisher.
Yeah, I definitely agree that this is by far the strongest setup Facebook Alliance has brought. It came in there with a plan of how to win against a bunch of different types of setups.
Yep.
They obviously had a plan of how to beat a Marauder, just neutered him out with the Geddon and then apply a bunch of damage from the Vindicator and the Thoraxes and the Demos. And it's actually the same kind of game plan that the German ski lessons had. Like, they're very, very similar setups in execution.
And they actually, they obviously made a key mistake. I think the Mollis is probably the obvious like turning point, or the point where things started to fall apart, but they also, their FCing was not bad. They didn't jump in to begin with. They could have sent those Thoraxes just hurling across the field at the very get-go and lost much quicker. And I feel like they at least did their best to try and figure out the best way to do things. And then just one accidental double click might have been the difference between kind of how that went down.
They played it in a kind of calm and collective manner. They didn't panic and just throw all their stuff at the enemy team.
Nope.
They did the whole thing. And you said, you mentioned that Hydra is a really good team at kind of capitalizing on mistakes and kind of staying on the outside for a while, and that is still, to this time, my favorite tournament match from the last New Eden Open when Hydra did exactly that, where they circled the team for 4 minutes, and then as soon as one little ship went tiny bit from their optimal place, they just pounced in and decimated the enemy team in 2 minutes. That was
as soon as they had a clear opening to get to the Logi. The other team was trying to protect the logistics ship with webs and screening, and they just spread out and orbited on the outside, waited for an opening, and then they saw it and pounced. And then 30 seconds later, the Logi was dead and the match was effectively over. It just happened so quickly once they see the opportunity.
And you see this from the really, really good tournament teams. They don't just charge in, they wait they bide their time, and when they see that opportunity, they go for the neck. They go for the jugular. So
I wonder, I'm trying to figure out if there's any reason that, that could have been a mistake, but not just an accident. Like
whether it could have been somehow kind of bait to...
Yeah, if they were trying to bait more of the ships across so that their battleships could engage first, or if they were trying to, I don't know, get around and get damps on the Oneros. Something it's possible that it wasn't just a complete accident, that it was a strategic choice that didn't work out, but it's hard to think of what that could be.
They didn't go very far across the field, though. I mean, it wasn't as if they were just kind of moving a little bit forward.
Right, he was out of range of the Logi.
He was all the way towards it. He actually was almost behind them when he died.
I could see, though, I was wondering about that. If you really do have a slow composition against a slow composition, and neither of you want to be the one to try to get across the field, what do you do? How does that actually resolve if two really good teams are doing that? And
eventually you get to the end and they try to kill a single ship before the end of the match.
I guess we have seen that in the past. That's right. Diving for some frag right before the match ends.
Yeah, that was during last Alliance tournament that we saw that.
Yeah, that was actually a great match.
It was super boring for 10 minutes.
Oh, this is terrible.
And then it was just
most intense 30 seconds at the end of the match possible. But it's I don't know. I could see them thinking, maybe this Mollis isn't a big deal. We can, try to lure something out. But
if you want, we can actually show that in our 3D ship viewer, if we have that, or the match viewer, if we have that ready to go. I'm not sure.
If that is if you have that,
I have it ready to go.
Okay, so we'll see if we can get that up on the screen. Yep.
So what we have here, for anyone who's
a game of Asteroid, if anybody's interested.
This is a slight iteration of the program that we showed you in the last Alliance tournament a little bit. It uses our Crest public data endpoint. All the data that this uses is actually available to players as well, and some of our players have made amazing websites sites that do very similar things to this, but this is a iOS version itself. The ship I have highlighted there on the red team, that is the Mollusk for Facebook Alliance. And I'm going to show you now the actual moment that it's, as it charges in. I can actually speed up the match a little bit. So you see the two teams are just kind of hanging out here, keeping their distance, sniping at each other, and the Mollusk just decides to shoot its way across the field.
Yeah,
and all the
my
way
gosh,
over
he's
there.
so far.
Look at how far this guy got.
He went like behind them.
Yeah.
I mean, he almost went past the German ski lesson team.
And so then we have the Demos tried to come up and I think probably kill some of the
following up
frigs.
a bit,
That might have been their plan, but he wasn't anywhere close to.
Then you see them.
And then he pulls back, and then they wait a little while, and then charge forward again, and you're going to see that thorax right there. So here's the thorax. Once I get that selected, there you go. The thorax of Jarek gets in way ahead of his team.
That's pretty cool to see it that way. I mean, he's again just totally
Definitely out of
stranded away
position.
from everybody.
And this was probably just the case again, like we said, where the FC called, "Hey everyone, we need to go after this primary," and the thorax forgot how fast it was.
And this is what this shows to me is how important teamwork is in this. How important it is for when your FC in a tournament match says, "Hey guys, go do this," that everybody understands it in exactly the same way. That nobody, like no one person just goes, "I'm going to go charge in at this target right now," but everybody just knows we're going after this target. That means that I need to burn up, I need to spiral around, I need to do this and this and this, and everybody's really in sync when it comes to that.
And that comes with practice, really. That's what you just like having done it a bunch of times. Because this is the kind of thing, if they practiced this setup against a similar team, then they probably would have run into this problem of, hey, the thorax charges in way ahead of everyone, and the thorax pilot would have known that it happens, and that's just like all you can do to avoid that is practice.
But with that, we say goodbye to the only social network represented in our tournament.
And to my favorite corp description of all of them.
I'm
still a huge fan of
them.
this is the Moist Alliance guys. Moist Dot. They're wormholers. And,
so I want to go into the bans for the next match because we're just about ready to jump into it. About 2 minutes out. No Boundaries have banned the Sleipnir and the Golem. And Agmar Money Team has banned the Armageddon and the Dominix. So we're seeing both the Dominix and the Sleipnir being banned in the first two matches. Also the Golem.
Yep. Golem was a consistent ban for all of last weekend. It's pretty interesting. I mean, Marauders kind of treading that line of being really strong and not being so strong. Golems actually didn't do all that well in the matches they showed up in, but they do present a really interesting problem for a lot of compositions, especially if you're bringing something that's kind of E-War focused. You know for a fact you're going to have to deal with that 800 damage or whatever it is coming in for the whole match, and Golems can reach the whole arena. Basically from where they start. So it can be a problem for a lot of teams, and they just don't want that on the field.
Yep. I mean, it opens up a lot of more options of what you can bring. If you try to bring a bunch of Celestis, for instance, there's no way they can get out of range of a Vargur and just kind of avoid him. But yeah, you can't get out of range of a Golem. And so there's a lot of, it doesn't really tell you too much about what it is that they're bringing, because there's a whole bunch of setups where you'd be wanting to get rid of it.
Right.
So, apart from what you were just saying, I just wanted to say I'm reading Twitch chat here and seeing a lot of people asking where they can get this app that we were just showing, get this Battle Viewer app. And right now we are testing it. It's currently still under development, but hopefully if it turns out nice and it kind of works, we'll be able to kind of give this to you guys in the future, possibly for the next Alliance tournament, which would be extremely entertaining for everybody involved.
Maravagian has been working on this really hard in basically his spare time. This is a labor of love for him.
Yes, so shout out to him. Big shout out.
This app itself is not public yet, but players have been making very similar things themselves. My favorite is the null-sec.com website.
I was going to say, they had one for the last 18.
They have it for this one
as well.
It's running for this
one as well,
And so it's a web-based viewer that does very similar things to this. It actually does, it's a little bit kind of cleaner looking than our app, but doesn't have all the same functions that ours does. But it's a great way to catch up on exactly what happened in a match,
Definitely. So the match is ready. Let's just dive into that one and get your predictions. CCP Fozzie.
This is going to be, I think, a really good match, but I'm going to go with Agmar Money Team.
Yep, me too, even though they lost last week.
Again, all three of us are in agreement. I am going with Agmar Money Team as well. Let's see if the PL team can take home another victory.